I'm not going to say what I want so much, and I'm not going to pretend to speak for the women of the world, but I want to just say in my few minutes what I'm hearing from a lot of the women that I learn from and in touch with. As many of you are, you have close, Jeanette and I were just talking about what she hears from women in El Salvador. A lot of you have connections with women in other parts of the world, and I'm very lucky that I'm constantly being educated by Turkish feminists, Korean feminists, Japanese feminists, Mexican feminists, Chilean feminists, South African feminists. These are women who constantly try to get me up to speed. And here are three things that I think a lot of women are very eager for the new president to do, and for each candidate to commit himself, alas, to. The first is to lift the gag rule. Now, many of you know about that, right? The gag rule is a presidentially imposed rule that requires that any U.S. overseas agency that's doing aid work, or any organization, NGO, either local, a Ugandan women's group, or the International Planned Parenthood, that they not do the following: that they give no information, no referrals, and absolutely no practical interventions that might be seen as promoting abortion. Now, this means if you are a Ugandan women's health clinic, you would be afraid of losing whatever small stream of U.S. money you had if you in any way were seen as giving the full array to your Ugandan women clients of what is possible for their own reproductive health. You cannot do it. And there was a Japanese young woman who told me, a Japanese woman who works overseas with Ugandan women. By the way, just P.S., there's a lot of international alliances that are going on that have nothing to do with American women. So this is a Japanese feminist working with Ugandan health group, and she said, we are stymied. This group, quite rightly, cannot dare to do anything that shows the full array to Ugandan women of what is possible for them for their own reproductive health, because they are afraid of losing, if not present, future U.S. aid. So lift the gag rule. Reagan imposed it. Bill Clinton took it off. The very first thing that George W. Bush did when he came into the presidency is he reimposed it. Number one, take away the gag rule. Number two, pay attention to women's economic well-being when any trade plan and trade agreement is negotiated. This seems so reasonable, but in fact it doesn't happen. That is, use a feminist curiosity when you're trying to figure out whether any trade agreement between governments in fact is good for both US-based women and women in the country that's being negotiated with. Just have a feminist curiosity and ask what this will do to women working on plantations, for instance, rubber plantations, which now a larger and larger number of women work on, or in factories like the maquiladoras over the border in Mexico. Have a feminist curiosity when this candidate speaks about where he stands on any particular trade agreement. Number three, and that is the ICC. The ICC stands for the International Crimes Court, ICC. Oftentimes in the media, and those of us who just talk about the violation of women's rights, we talk about it as the Permanent War Crimes Tribunal. What you know we now have is the Rwandan War Crimes Tribunal, and we have the Bosnian, Serbian War Crimes Tribunal. This is now the permanent, it's called the ICC. And it was negotiated, it's called the Treaty of Rome. It's now in practice for the first time. The US President and the US Senate This is why we all have to pay attention to the Senate, right? Don't just get hung up on McCain Obama. Watch Senate races. Even pound on that podium about the Senate. Because every treaty, that means the U.S. not going into the landmines treaty, the U.S. refusing to be part of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, and the U.S. denial of the International Crime Court, every treaty must be passed by the U.S. Senate as well as signed by the U.S. President. The International Crimes Court is based on the Treaty of Rome, that's what it's called. That is the only forum now that guarantees that there will not be impunity, something that Rita Arditi knows so much about, that there will not be impunity for regimes or for insurgent forces that engage in systematic rape during wartime. The ICC is the only international place where those people can be held account when they, either directly or indirectly, foment violence against women as a weapon of war. The United States Senate, under the Republicans, and White House, under the Republicans, have refused to even bring the treaty to the floor of the Senate. So, number 3, dedicate yourself to signing and backing the Senate ratification of the International Crimes Court for the sake of bringing to justice and to account any leader of any kind of armed group that supports rape of women in wartime. Thanks.